on our wall the old sign of a Lithuanian consulate from pre-war period, and we appreciate that, and to having our diplomatic missions which never ceased to work during the occupation period. So this is a very, very cherishable moment for us. Thank you for your question, and here, like listening to what my colleague said about European Union, we just have to remember that if economic coercion for Lithuania, as I mentioned in my statement, we saw it from the very, very beginning. In European Union, economic security strategy was adopted in year 2023 in June, with first steps of implementation next year. So we can say that the understanding on strategic rivalship with China is in European Union. But as you rightly stated, that cone has a lot of angles. So internal businesses, domestic investment, what was made of? Now, when we withdraw from 17+1 Road and Belt Initiative, we've met a lot of non-understanding from our partners, what we're doing, why we're doing, because it's easy money, as you told, follow the money. We had that Klaipėda Sea State Port, which China wanted to take over, and incentives were on the table on big amounts. But coming back, what do we see? There is a lot of more understanding within the European Union. Renewed FDI screening mechanism, which will be enforced from the January 1st next year. Dual-use export control mechanism. Unbound investment control, which none of those countries are keen to see in, but we even see our like-minded partners within the states and economies, like Netherlands, for instance, who understood that this is a threat. This is a threat to lose their comparative advantages. So I won't be naming countries in here because we are 27 in the same pool. We better work together. We better work together, find a ways to understand each other, as well, even when we're talking about Hungary, right? So what is happening, why is happening, and we better do that. And I will repeat Transatlantic cooperation, mentioned not once here at our table. Again, this we would consider as utmost importance, to have that mutual common understanding to work together on our strategic rivals, softly speaking, and to find that connection, and not to be afraid of that cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to point out, as you mentioned about the legation in Chicago, I'm sure that it's a reaffirmation of the warm relationship we have between Lithuania and the United States, and I'm sure that the second largest Lithuanian city after Vilnius is Chicago. The second largest Polish city in the world is Chicago. The second largest Bulgarian city in the world is Chicago. And so we all come together, and of course, I'm celebrating Bulgaria National Day yesterday. So, hey, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay. I'd like to take a little time here because Audrey's got a stop clock, and I've seen you writing furiously. I don't have a question for you. What is it you want to say over the next couple of minutes? Because you're the expert in here. I can ask all the questions I want, but you've got some thoughts on your mind, so go ahead and give us what they are.
Sure. Well, actually, it was sort of in response to Chairman Wilson's, question and comment about, which countries have been most susceptible to Chinese influence, and which countries best respond. And I sort of think, taking a step back, I think, it highlights the importance of strengthening democratic resilience and ensuring that institutions are strong, that there are checks and balances in, all of these societies and these countries, right, to ensure that there is transparency, awareness of what China is doing, that there are enough, stakeholders that are able to push back, right, and not just let a dictator or a strongman politician sort of be able to accept, corrupt deals and do what he wants with it. So I think in terms of looking forward, right, is I think, and sort of looking at each individual country and trying to ensure that civil society, that there is free and fair elections, all of these attributes, I think, are key in allowing individual countries to be able to push back against Chinese influence more broadly.
Thank you. Okay, since you've just got a few more minutes, and my friend Mark Vesey from Texas, my neighbor to the west and north, and he surrounds me, and I'd like to welcome him to the hearing today. So, Mark, Audrey's got until 3:45.
Okay.
So, if you got some questions for her, go ahead and ask them, and you have some time.
I will, and anybody can answer them. I wanted to ask, particularly as it relates to the supply chain issues that we've talked about related to Greenland. What sort of steps can the EU take to prevent China from gaining a leverage through infrastructure investment or resource access when it comes to the issue around Greenland and the critical mineral supply chains, which China already dominates those supply chains? That's something that I'm really concerned about.
I think some of my colleagues will have good answers to that, but I'll take a first shot. I think you raised, it's a very serious problem and question. I think, what we've been talking about, sort of the importance of coordination and sort of combining, allies in Europe with allies in the Indo Pacific. So sort of thinking about Japan and South Korea and sort of improving that coordination to ensure that, there is sort of vertical integration of these supply chains, that at each step we're not dependent on China for mining and extraction, for processing, for the technologies that are required, right, to transform these rare earth and critical minerals into the strategic inputs for technology and other important sectors. So I think ensuring that there's strategic coordination at the high levels, but I think also putting your money where your mouth is, right?
Yeah.
That you're saying, here are maybe, some funds at sort of everyone pitching in and saying, here's how we can support, companies to invest in the whole supply chain. So not just, mining, but also the technologies to refine and process rare earths. I think it's critical to diversify and de-risk and, ensure that we're not dependent on China for at any stage.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Mrs. Anelli, I want to ask you, when President Trump and his efforts to want to, or I'll say initially, I guess he's kind of walked back a little bit, his efforts to want to have more of an influence in Greenland, has that helped or hurt Chinese influence in Greenland?
Well, thank you very much, Congressman Wesley. I would like to go a little bit back into the leverage that the Chinese have, especially when it comes to Europe, because Europe depends 97% on Chinese rare earth and critical inputs for its technologies. And it's a double-edged sword also for the fact that all those that are needed for more spending, more development in defense and technologies for the European Union, they're dependent on the Chinese. So that's why we have this dependence and leverage that the Europeans have on China. However, Europe has reacted. It has a critical mineral act recently, and so it has a new procurement strategy that the European companies will get together and also work together towards those issues.